Want to increase your VO2 max but don't know where to start? Almost daily I read at least one post on Reddit, people asking about how to increase their VO2 max. The only problem is their lack of understanding of the functioning of this body organ. And because of that, they give up too soon. You need to learn how exactly the idea of VO2 max works. What are the organs that affect the VO2 max? So if you want to develop that understanding, then stay with me for next 10 minutes. I promise by the end of this video, you will be having a much better idea of what you should focus on to increase your VO2 max. By the way, if you haven't watched my last video, check that out. It will help you understand this video much better. The link is in the description. In my last video, I briefly introduced the principal equation for calculating VO2 max. Let me share that here again. It's called Fick's equation. The first term is called cardiac output. It is the volume of blood pumped by the heart per unit of time and is usually expressed as liter per minute. The second term is arteriovenous oxygen difference. It is a measure of the amount of oxygen taken up from the blood by the tissues of the working muscles. To understand the concept of VO2 max at a deeper level, we must at least develop a basic understanding of the anatomy of heart and how blood circulates in our body. This will help us understand the cardiac output much better as it is critical in improving your VO2 max. Let's first understand the basic anatomy of the heart. The heart has a three-dimensional structure, hence it takes a while to understand that. I found this cool video that shows a beating heart and I can revolve and record simultaneously to show various parts in all the directions. Let's slice it to look at the internal structure. The septum divides the heart into two sections, right and left. The right side of the heart contains deoxygenated blood and the left side of the heart contains oxygenated blood. Right side has two chambers, the right atrium and the right ventricle. The right atrium and the right ventricle are connected through a valve called the tricuspid valve. Through this valve, the blood flows from the right atrium to the right ventricle. Similarly, the left hand side has two chambers, the left atrium and the left ventricle. The left atrium and the left ventricle are connected by a valve called mitral or bicuspid valve. The valve allows the blood to flow from the left atrium to the left ventricle. Now, let's see how the blood flows in our body. In our body, either the blood is oxygenated or deoxygenated. Let's see how both the oxygenated blood and the oxygenated blood flow in our bodies. The deoxygenated blood enters the right atrium through the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. The tricuspid valve then lets the blood enter the right ventricle. From there, the blood goes into the lungs through the pulmonary artery for oxygenation after passing through the pulmonary valve. The blood receives its oxygen in the lungs and goes back to the heart through pulmonary veins. The blood then enters the left atrium. The bicuspid valve lets the blood to left ventricle, which then goes to the aorta passing through the aortic valve, and finally circulates to the whole body. Although the functioning of the whole heart is critical to life, the left ventricle and the aorta plays a very critical role in cardiorespiratory fitness and VO2 max. In my upcoming video, I will discuss this in much more detail. For now, let's continue with the discussion. As mentioned previously, cardiac output is the volume of blood ejected by the heart per minute. Now, there are two components to this definition. The first is the volume of blood ejected in a single contraction and the number of contractions in 1 minute. Based on that, we can write the equation of cardiac output as here. Stroke volume is the volume of blood ejected in a single contraction. HR is the number of times the heart beats in 1 minute. The image on your screen is a cross-section of heart showing the left atrium, left ventricle, and finally the aorta from where blood leaves the heart. To pump the blood, the heart contracts and relaxes multiple times in 1 minute, around about 70 minutes in general. When the heart is in relaxed state, this is when it fills with blood. This relaxation of heart is called diastole. Right at the end of the relaxation state, the blood volume in the left ventricle is called the end diastolic volume, in short EDV. This is the maximum amount of blood filled in the heart. After the relaxation state, the heart contracts to push the blood out of left ventricle through the aorta for circulation in the body. The contraction state is called systole. At the end of systole, most of the blood is ejected by the heart, but not 100%. There is still some amount of blood left in the left ventricle. At the end of the systolic state, the leftover blood volume in left ventricle is called end systolic volume, in short ESV. So effectively, blood ejected by the heart is the difference between EDV and ESV, which is nothing but the stroke volume. That is the volume of blood ejected by the heart in a single contraction. Now, if we multiply the stroke volume by heart rate, we can find out the volume of blood ejected by the heart in a single minute, as I mentioned earlier. And that is how we calculate the cardiac output of the heart. You can appreciate the simple math here. Once you understand this, it gets easier to work to increase your VO2 max. Now, there are two more terms I want to discuss because they are used very frequently when we talk about VO2 max. So you will see me using those very frequently in my later videos. The first term is called preload. Preload is the stretch caused by the blood in the walls of the left ventricle when it is maximally filled, which happens at the state of EDV. It is important because preload directly correlates with ESV. This is called the Frank-Starling mechanism, which in simple words can be explained as the more the stretch in the ventricle, the more volume the blood will be ejected. If the preload is high, then stroke volume is high and hence higher the VO2 max. The second term is called afterload. Afterload is the resistance blood faces while exiting the ventricle. This could happen due to atherosclerosis, which is nothing but plaque clogging the arteries. Plaque reduces the artery's diameter, making it difficult for the blood to flow. This causes less blood to leave the heart, reducing the stroke volume. As you can see, less stroke volume means less cardiac output. So if the afterload is high, then cardiac output is low, hence lower VO2 max. I hope you can see the connection between cardiac output, stroke volume, preload and afterload, which play a big role in deciding the VO2 max value. As already mentioned, left ventricle and aorta are critical when it comes to the circulation of oxygenated blood to the muscles. Lowering of VO2 max during the lifespan has a lot to do with this section of heart. This applies particularly from the middle years onwards when left ventricle starts changing its shape. I have a full episode planned dedicated to this topic. So, whatever we discussed in this video will be used in my upcoming videos. Please watch it again to make sure that you understand it well. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them down below. I will answer them as soon as I can. Let's build a community committed to health and fitness together. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button. And if you're curious about the next video, subscribe to my channel and you will never miss an update. Until next time, stay healthy, stay fit. This is T signing off.